join our growing YouTube family. Subscribe now and be part of every exciting moment. Ever had a similar encounter or strange moment? We'd be thrilled if you'd share it with us in the comments. Who knows, your story might be featured next. Good evening. I'm so glad you could join me. The world, as you know, is full of thin places. Places where the veil between what is and what was is worn away by time and tragedy. Places that hold on to sorrow like a sponge holds water. Tonight, I want to talk to you about one such place. A house that has been waiting patiently just off a forgotten road for its next visitors. A house that doesn't just contain ghosts, it creates them. This is the story of house number 13. And it begins, as all good warnings should, with the evidence of those who failed to heed them. We begin with a piece of found footage, the digital ghost of a night gone horribly, irrevocably wrong. Picture the chaotic, glitching feed from a camcorder. A teenage boy's face, slick with the sweat of pure terror. His name was Mark. He's gasping, his voice a hysterical whisper into the lens. It knows! It knows our names! The camera swings wildly, finding a girl named Jenna, her fingers bloody and raw from clawing at a window that will not budge. "I can't get out!" she shrieks. "Mark, it's right behind you!" Mark turns the camera back on himself, his face crumbling as a horrifying realization dawns. "She's not a ghost," he whimpers, his voice cracking into a sob. "She's a collector." And then, from the very air around them, a low guttural whisper seems to answer. A single, possessive word that promises a terrible eternity. Mine. The camera drops. For a fleeting second we see a wall, and on it, the shadow of a tall woman and two small children, before the footage cuts to the eternal snow of static. The tape was found a week later in the overgrown yard. Mark and Jenna were not. Their story became a chilling whisper, a local legend told to scare teenagers. A year later, 4 such teenagers sat in the sterile brightness of a 24-hour diner, bathed in neon and blissful ignorance. They believed they were the storytellers. They didn't know they were just the next chapter. There was Maya, the group's fearless leader, her eyes gleaming with the thrill of the dare. For her, fear was a locked door, and she was the one holding the key. Across from her was Liam, the vlogger, the archivist. He was scrolling through his phone, a nervous energy buzzing beneath his cool facade. He was the one who had unearthed the legend. "Okay, listen to this," he said, reading from a blog dedicated to local folklore. The Crane Estate, colloquially known as House Number 13, built in 1890. The tragedy occurred in the winter of 1928. Eleanora Crane, a wealthy widow, lost both her children, William and Rose, to a swift and brutal strain of influenza. The official report says she succumbed to grief and took her own life. But the locals, they tell a different story. Next to him sat Ben, the jock, currently trying to build a tower out of sugar packets. Ben had built his entire personality around a carefully constructed wall of bravado. "Let me guess," he scoffed. "She still wanders the halls, weeping for her lost children. Sad story, but that's all it is. A story." He'd said it a little too loudly. Maya caught it. "You seem jumpy, Ben. Everything okay?" He bristled. "I'm not jumpy. It's just dumb. Getting scared of stories. That's for kids." He didn't tell them about the time he was 7, when his older brother locked him in a dark shed. How he'd screamed himself hoarse until his father found him. He never forgot the look of disappointment on his father's face. He swore he'd never be that scared little boy again. And then there was Chloe, Maya's younger sister, a still point in the booth's whirlwind of activity. She was tracing patterns in the condensation on her glass. She hadn't looked at Liam's phone. She didn't need to. She could already feel the house, a cold spot in the center of her chest, a distant, sorrowful hum. "Please, Maya," she said, her voice barely audible. "Let's not. It feels wrong. It feels like we're being invited." Maya reached over and ruffled her sister's hair, a familiar, patronizing gesture. "Oh, Chloe, it's just an old house. Think of it as an adventure." She clapped her hands together, her voice bright and final. "All right, it's settled. Tonight, we visit the lovely Eleonora. We get some epic footage for Liam's channel, and we prove that ghosts are just cobwebs and drafts. Who's in?" Ben and Liam gave their boisterous assents. Chloe just sank deeper into her seat, the cold spot in her chest growing colder. The dare had been made, and the house, miles away in the sleeping dark, seemed to stir, its empty windows like waking eyes. The journey was a slow descent into isolation. The city lights vanished from the rearview mirror, replaced by an impenetrable wall of rural darkness. The friendly voice of the GPS devolved into a garbled mess of static before dying with a final electronic sigh. The radio was next. It hissed and popped until, for a chilling minute, it tuned into a faint, lilting melody. A woman, humming, "Ring Around the Rosie." Liam switched it off, his knuckles white. "Did you guys hear that?" he asked. "Radio interference," Maya said, a little too quickly. They passed a scarecrow in a fallow field, its burlap face tilted towards the road. 5 minutes later, after a series of confusing, unmarked turns, they passed it again. This time, its head seemed to be tilted slightly higher. And then, at the dead end of a road that looked like it hadn't been driven on in years, they saw it. House number 13. It was a monument to decay, sagging under the weight of its own dark history. It didn't just look abandoned, it looked rejected, forsaken. They found an old cellar door at the rear, half swallowed by thorns and weeds. With a combined effort, they pulled it open, revealing a set of stone steps leading down into a solid, breathing darkness. One by one, they descended. As Chloe, the last one, stepped off the final stair, the heavy oak door above them swung shut. It wasn't the gentle creak of old hinges. It was a swift, heavy slam that ended with the clean metallic click of a deadbolt engaging. A wave of cold, musty air washed over them. They were in, and they were trapped. The house greeted them with a symphony of whispers, too low to be understood, and the sweet, sickly smell of dying flowers. They explored the ground floor with a mixture of bravado and creeping dread. In the living room, they found furniture shrouded in white sheets like a sleeping congregation. On the wall, a grand family portrait, a handsome man, 2 small children, and a woman whose face had been violently scratched away. In the cavernous dining room, Liam's flashlight beam fell upon a small, leather-bound book tucked into a sideboard drawer. Eleonora's diary. His hands trembled as he opened it. The ink was faded, but the elegant, spidery script was clear. "October 12th, 1928, he read softly. "The silence in this house is a living thing. Since my darlings were taken by the fever, the quiet screams their names. My husband's family looks at me with such pity. They do not understand. They cannot hear them crying for me in the night. A loud, violent crash from the adjacent kitchen made them all jump. Ben, seizing the chance to be the brave one, strode towards the swinging door. "Probably just a raccoon," he said. He pushed the door open into a scene of chaos. Every cabinet and drawer was flung wide, their contents spewed across the floor. In the center of the room, a cloud of flour hung in the air, slowly settling on a pile of shattered plates. There was no raccoon. There was nothing. Just the sudden, overwhelming stench of rotting meat. They backed out, slamming the door shut. Shaken, they retreated upstairs, drawn by an unseen current. They found the children's bedroom. It was a perfect, heartbreaking time capsule. 2 small beds, a rocking horse frozen mid-rock, a dollhouse with its tiny inhabitants arranged in a silent tea party. Chloe stood in the doorway, her eyes wide. The room began to swim. She saw it as it was, filled with the ghosts of laughter. She saw 2 children, a boy and a girl, William and Rose. She saw them get sick. She saw their mother, Eleonora, her love twisting into a desperate, paranoid madness. And then she saw something else. She saw Eleonora, after they were gone, shrieking at her own reflection in a vanity mirror, convinced that mirror people were trying to steal her children's souls away from her. A small, spectral voice whispered in the depths of Chloe's mind.
"Mommy broke the looking glass. She said it saves us from the tricksters."
Chloe gasped and stumbled back into the hallway, her vision clearing. She looked at her friends, her heart pounding. "The mirrors," she stammered. She was afraid of the mirrors. Maya put a hand on her shoulder. "Chloe, you're scaring yourself. Let's find somewhere to sit down." They ducked into an adjacent sewing room. While Maya tried to calm her sister, Liam opened the diary again. November 3rd, 1928. They tried to take Rose today. I saw her, trapped in the vanity mirror, crying for me. But it wasn't her. It was a trickster, wearing my daughter's face. I smashed the glass. I will smash them all. It is the only way to keep my children safe. Only I can see the truth. They will never leave me. Liam looked up, his face pale. Chloe was right. Ben had heard enough. This talk of visions and mirror people was getting under his skin, dangerously close to that scared little boy in the shed. He needed to prove it was all nonsense. "You guys are losing it," he announced with forced bravado. "I'm gonna go check out the master bedroom. It's the only one with a big wardrobe. I'll go say hi to the mirror people for you." He stormed off down the hall. It was a challenge, and in house number 13, every challenge is accepted. They heard the master bedroom door open, then close, and then the waiting. A silence so profound, it felt like pressure against their eardrums. It was broken by a scream, a raw, guttural cry of sheer terror that seemed to go on forever. It was Ben's voice. It was followed by pleading. "No, please, I'm sorry. I'm not brave, please don't." And then, a series of sounds that would haunt their nightmares forever. The wet, sickening snap of breaking bones. And then, silence. A final, absolute silence. They scrambled to the door, pounding on it, screaming his name. It was locked. Futilely, they threw their shoulders against it. As they reeled back for another attempt, the lock clicked with a horrifying deliberateness. The door swung inward, opening into the dark. The room was empty. Ben was gone. Now, the true terror began. Realizing they were being hunted, they tried to flee, but the house was now awake, and it was playing with its food. The hallway they had just come down was no longer there. It stretched into an impossible looping corridor that always led them back to the master bedroom door. They tried the main staircase, but as they scrambled down, the wooden steps beneath them flattened into a smooth, steep slide, sending them tumbling in a heap back to the ground floor lobby. The house was a labyrinth, a puzzle box, and they were the pieces. They saw him then, an apparition of Ben, standing at the far end of a hallway, beckoning them with a silent, desperate wave. They ran towards him, only for him to fade away as the floorboards beneath their feet began to creak and groan, threatening to give way. The house was driving them, hurting them. Every escape route led to a dead end. Every passage funneled them back. There was only one room it wanted them in. With a dawning, sickening horror, they realized their only path forward was back into the room where Ben had vanished. The master bedroom, the heart of the maze, the collector's arena. The moment they stepped back inside, the door slammed shut with the force of a cannon blast. This time, the illusion was total. The room expanded into a vast, Gothic chamber, lit by a sickly, spectral light. Eleonora stood before them, no longer a whisper or a shadow, but a figure of terrible power and profound sorrow. Her judgment was swift and personal. She turned to Liam, and he was no longer in the house. He was 16 again, standing by the side of a lake as his friend, who couldn't swim, struggled in the water. He had frozen, paralyzed by fear, until it was too late. Now, Eleonora stood beside him, her voice a venomous whisper. "You are a watcher, Liam. You document tragedy, but you never prevent it. You will watch them die too." She turned to Maya, whose confidence had shattered into a million pieces. She saw Chloe, not her sister, but a ghostly, translucent version. Her eyes hollow and full of eternal blame. "You did this, Maya," the ghost Chloe wept. "Your pride brought me here. Now, I will never leave. We will be sisters in this darkness forever." Maya collapsed, sobbing, her guilt a physical weight. All seemed lost. But Chloe, holding the memory of her vision, of the diary, of the whispers, found a final kernel of strength. It was Maya who, through her tears, remembered. The alphabet blocks, the diary, the mirror, she choked out. "Chloe, the mirror!" Chloe's eyes darted around the room and landed on the vanity table. There, almost hidden in the gloom, was an old, silver-backed hand mirror. Eleonora's hand mirror. She grabbed it. "Eleonora!" Chloe screamed, her voice a beacon in the oppressive despair. "You hide from the truth! You hide from yourself!" She held the mirror up, its polished surface catching the spectral light. "Look at what you've become!" Eleonora shrieked, a sound of pure, soul-shattering agony, as she was forced to confront her own twisted, monstrous reflection. The grand illusion wavered and tore like old fabric. The real room, with its one boarded-up window, reappeared. It was the opening they needed. Liam, breaking free from his trance, kicked and tore at the rotten wood. As they scrambled to escape, the house itself seemed to fight back. Spectral hands, skeletal and gray, burst from the wallpaper, grasping at their clothes, their hair. They tumbled out onto the damp earth, gasping for the clean night air. They didn't stop. They ran a frantic, stumbling sprint across the overgrown lawn to the car. They jumped in, Maya fumbling with the keys, her hands slick with sweat. She turned the ignition, Click, sputter, whine. The engine wouldn't turn over. A pale face appeared in the driver's side window. Eleonora. Then another in the passenger window. Then the small, sad faces of William and Rose in the back. They weren't screaming. They were just watching, their hands pressing against the glass, trapping the living in their glass tomb. "Try again!" Liam roared. Maya, screaming, twisted the key again. The engine sputtered. Once, twice. And then, with a deafening roar, it caught. The tires screamed as Maya slammed the car into drive, peeling away from the curb, leaving the ghost standing on the lawn, receding in the rearview mirror until they were gone. The ride back was utterly silent. The sun was beginning to rise, painting the sky in shades of bruised purple and gray. Maya risked a glance at her arm, where Eleonora had grabbed her. The ghostly handprint, a tracery of faint dark bruises, was still there. And as the first rays of true sunlight hit the windshield, she watched, mesmerized, as the marks slowly, impossibly, faded away, leaving her skin clean, as if it had never happened. They thought they had escaped. They thought they had survived. They believed they had won. But our story ends, as it must, back in that dark, silent master bedroom. Ben's phone, forgotten on the floor, flickers with its last dregs of battery life. The screen illuminates the wall with the tally marks. The house's final, unforgiving score. A shadowy, ethereal hand, thin and graceful, enters the frame. With a sickening, deliberate scratch, it carves one new mark into the plaster. One for Ben. He had paid the price for his hollow bravado. But then, the hand pauses. It lingers. After a moment of chilling stillness, a moment that stretches into a terrible eternity, the hand moves again. And with another slow, deliberate scratch, it carves a second mark right next to the first. A second mark. But there were only 3 survivors. Who was it for? Was it a promise? A claim on a soul that had been touched, marked, and would one day be collected? Or was it something worse? A sign that the collector had taken a down payment, and that another soul from that car was already as good as gone. The phone's battery finally dies. The last thing it records is not a sound of sorrow or rage. It is the sound of a child's gleeful, ghostly whisper, echoing in the now permanent dark.
You're all our playmates now.